Alright, getting started today with this Doom Reaver. Really cool sculpt. Got that weapon held high. Nice things to poke yourself on when you're playing the game. We're going to start with some non-metallics going forward on the legs and maybe a few of the plates on the arm, like she's replaced some of the parts, and then some Khador schemed, weathered old plates of armor for her arm plates and that, and then an old weathered Khador cloak. You can see she's traveling around. She's got a lot of patches and things, so she's been out there going crazy. She got a big scar over her eye here, so we might just like white out that eye, give her a milky eye. We'll see. But I'm gonna get going with some of the metallic areas, and then we can talk about some non-metallics. Yay! Alright, going for kind of a weathered iron armor. Lots of feathery brush strokes and stippling with the later layers in order to give it that sort of rough look, and then some of the intermediate layers, some streaking, a little bit of battle damage, what would be bends or folds in the metal. Alright, we start with a mix of black and brown and black on top of our black, leaving just a pinch of black in the deepest shadows around the rivets and underneath panels of armor. There's still a little bit of gray down in there. It was added, and then back here underneath where armor connects, you want to leave just a little bit of that black for your shadow. Then a pure black and brown to refine our sketch. If you watch a lot of my videos, you'll and I'm going to go over this in a minute as well because I like to reinforce. Sketching is just laying out where your highlights are going to be with a shadow layer, so you know where those highlights are going to pinch towards later on. And then we move to a 50-50 mix of our gray-green and our blackened brown to a pure gray-green to a mix of gray-green and sky gray to a pure, whoop, I'm gonna have to redo that. Yep, I had them in the wrong order. Alright, don't think about sky gray yet. Alright, so once we get to the pure gray green, we do a mix of gray green and gray pale. Blue gray pale. And then move some of this stuff off my thing. And then blue gray pale, pure, sky gray, pure, and then Manoff white highlight, pure. And those are very, very tiny areas. Let's demonstrate on this knee pad here. So you can see we've got a little bit of a dark shadow, but as the foot comes out, these rounded elements are catching a lot more of our light, and these flats aren't as reflective just because, again, old weathered worn armor. Let's take our mixture of black and blackened brown and add our first sketch layer, letting these rivets sort of obscure the light themselves. Going right up to this spike. The spike's going to get painted too in this color. Just concentrating on the knee pad for demonstration purposes. And then this little triangle coming up will get painted as well. Alright, once that is done, we're moving to our pure black and brown. You can see my mix down here in the health bar section of the screen. You can cut down on the amount of these layers that you do if you want a less blended look for quicker, more tabletop schemes, less display, less box art. Coming all the way around into here. And then getting there, the bounce light area. I'm going to go all the way up to that flat. You might have seen here that I drew like a little bit of a line underneath the knee pad. So you see we have that black and brown here, a little line there, and then more of our spherical highlight at the top of that area. God, I am getting a cramp or a stitch in my side. Alright, black and brown and our gray green monocolor. That's this mixture currently coming in. This is where you'll start seeing sort of the iron look. Still tracing edges. You see how my brush stroke isn't as flat as it was? A little wormy, a little sketchy. I might knock out that. Anyway, sometimes where the tops of rivets intersect with an object, again, our light can be so intense that it could blow out that shadow, and that is our choice. So if we want to blow out that shadow, we'll blow it out. If I get a little bit of paint up on this spike, it's okay. I can go back and re-black it before I start painting it. Being a little bit more fastidious on camera here, making sure that you guys can see what I'm doing, and that what I'm doing is correct. Alright, pure gray green now. You can see that these colors are very close to each other. Roughen up that edge a little bit. I like this kind of organization in painting that comes with doing layer-based painting. It's like once you have things sort of locked in, you can move a little faster. I'm underlining this spike here, and then flaring out this highlight here, and then bringing the highlight around the top of the spike here. And we're about to move on to our green gray and our blue gray pale. So that's where I'm mixed up. Oop, that's over here. I'm gonna have to remix those colors. No, I didn't mean to get that in there. Alright, continuing on. Again, haphazard with the brush strokes. Organized chaos for this knee pad. Pull this line around a little bit. Starting to get a break in some of our highlights here and there, just to show that it's weathered. Come around here and attack this from this angle a little bit. Go back, grab just a little bit of this color, blend that out. There we go. Well, I didn't mean to knock out that much of that. Now we're into our pure gray pale. Last three colors. You see, it moves pretty fast. I mean, non-metallic shouldn't be the fastest technique out there. Get that underline or edging. Anything that we think should be a hard line. definitely get that highlight up at the top of that knee pad there. Alright, going into our sky gray. Get these rivets. Pulling our highlight closer to this spike here. Again, going for almost like a stippled brushed metal. Very heavily textured iron. Hit a few of these bottom areas and stipple them a little bit. Every time you stipple or you do kind of a stutter stroke for the edging, it adds that look of like an edge that's been battered or hit a few times. Alright, liking that. We're kind of getting a little natural break here, so it's almost like a quadrant to the knee pad, which is kind of modeled in that way. You can see on this knee pad there's a break that runs from this corner to the spike. And then our final highlight, our warm ivory Minoth highlight. Very sparing and just stippled on, give that sort of worn look. We might put, you know, one tiny little dot down here at the bottom, but it's just barely on there. A little bit right there in the back along that line. And I think that's looking like a really nice iron shin. We're going to go ahead and use that scheme for all of the gray metals on our model here, our figure. So we have some runes here. We'll use kind of that. We just won't use the warm highlight. And then this leg, of course, got some areas on the hilt that could be done on the handle of the sword. Definitely these little buckles on the back. Any sort of latches. I'm going to look these little runes up. They could be like rocks or something. We'll see. I know they've got to be like trophies of some sort. But that looks like it's pretty sparing in the non-metallic. Mostly the legs, but we want to mirror some of that up in the top of the model just to be cohesive. Alright, just something to keep in mind as you're working up, and I wanted to stop just to make sure you guys caught it early in the video. The inside of this armor is red. The outside, usually, so like Doom Reavers, they don't have trim on their armor, or the old models don't, or the current models don't. So I'm going to treat that like this iron in here. So each object will have a red or a dull red interior to call out the fact that it is Khador armor, but instead of like the typically kind of black matte trim, we're going to trim it in this metallic, you know, kind of like it's been worn off, it's old, beaten up like the rest of our armor. So this recipe in here is a black and brown and black base, just like our weathered iron. But once we get to black and brown, we mix in cinnamon red from Reaper. Cinnamon red, a little bit of a darker scab red, if you're familiar, or like Mephiston red. It's not like a red, it's not an RGB red. The Khador red is much brighter than the cinnamon red. And then the Khador highlight goes up there. So, you know, they have bright red armor. This, we want to be like, it's dull, she's been out in the wild, she's kind of nuts, she hasn't upkept her armor very much. She's just interested in killing people and, you know, maybe getting a good night's sleep. So, once you get your black-brown base in all these armor areas, I'm going to go ahead and just a volumetric highlight. We're not going to make it shiny, right? So our black and brown over the black and blackened brown highlight, leaving a little bit of that previous layer. And I'm going to go back in and clean up some of this just for my own sanity, since we're using such, parallel colors. They're the same colors in the base for sure, but you can do a lot, especially when you got a lot of naturalistic tones. So now we're taking maybe 1/3 of that cinnamon red and 2/3 of that black and brown. For all you engineers out there who like to measure your drops of paint, I know you do. Don't lie. I live in a town with the most engineers per capita of any city in the world. So any new person you meet, usually an engineer. A lot of miniature painters too. So it's a big crossover between people who work in those sort of fields. Alright, mixing in. Now we got the 2/3 cinnamon red and the 1/3 black and brown, just to get our layers to blend. Again, I'm going all the way up to the edge with this. I'm not getting super fancy with it. It's sort of a red fade here, and see, even that's pretty bright for her. We are still going to go to a pure cinnamon red highlight. I always wonder if I should have some. If I had music playing, I'd have to do some sort of extra steps on YouTube or something. I don't know. It would be nice to make a few bucks from these one day. I don't think I'm ever gonna. Pure cinnamon red now. Just at the top. Again, volumetric, so she's pretty dark down there. It's going to be outlined with these trimmed elements of the iron. I'm calling it iron because it's got a lot of, it's not like a stainless steel or anything. It's got a lot of brown in it. Just right here near the edge, and then before I do my trim, I'll go in and repaint those areas. Come on, phone. I will repaint these little areas in here black. It's funny, it will going for the brush but not the model. Repaint these little trim areas black to make sure that I got a nice divide between those armor panels and the trim that's there. But it's just these two little elements. I went ahead and based her cape in the black and brown because her cape is going to be kind of this cinnamon red Khador call out again. And then she's got two more little armor panels right here. And then she's got kind of the one iron, fully ironed shoulder pad that I'm seeing in a lot of the artwork. So. Alright, let's take a look at the cloak and the center tabard. So the cloak, we're doing a very rich, dark, deep red. Same recipe as the that we used for the red inside the armor. Black and brown with a mix of black all the way up to our cinnamon red. Oh my god, I got a frog in my throat. Been quiet for too long. But let's take a look here. I've already got a pretty deep base coat of my black and brown. I might step it up. You're not going to have to do too many layers, so adding a few more in between won't really hurt much. Here we just want to get a highlight in of where our major folds, so you got like one at the bottom, one here toward the middle. And just blend them out. We can make them touch here at the bottom. It's one of those things, like as you're painting, you can look at something and be like, hey, I can adjust that. It's an acrylic. You can paint over stuff. Go all the way to the edge here. Now let's take a pure black and brown. Work this up a little bit more. down this edge. I'm going to go over the crest again. Let me connect on this side too. Just trying to speak to my thought process as it's happening. Let's take our first mix of black and brown and red. Again, let's do soft highlights on this. Let's make sure that our objects are highlighted in a way that makes them look a little more flowy, less edgy. I do need, there's like a hard fold right there, you can kind of see it. I'm gonna hit that. I'm gonna call it out. Alright, and then stepping up with a little more intense mixture of our red and black and brown. I broke it down into about 3 parts. That way our transitions are nice and soft. Happy little transitions. Yeah, not going for sharp scheme, going for moody. Giving her a moody tabard. Tabard that has to think about doing its taxes in a few weeks. It's enough to get anybody moody. Well, enough to get an American moody. I hear you other guys. Other states. Countries, not states. Have it a lot easier. So, let's see the feathery brush strokes here. Let's try pure cinnamon. It might be a little bit bright. Red's one of those colors that we can blend so nicely. The thing about reds is they don't coat well, but they blend so well. So if you're looking for practice in blending, try out some reds. Reds and yellows. Just got a nice moody shadow in the middle of that tabard. Now this is the point where I look at it and go, do I want it to go brighter in that shadow? I could drop, I can make that shadow smaller. So I go back in here, get some of my darker red brown. I'm gonna pull this into my highlight a little bit. You see how drastic of a shift that was just with one color? Each brush stroke is pulling toward my highlight. And I like that a little bit better. Let's take my pure color again. Pull it in here. Nice blendy brush strokes. I think that's about where I'll stop. So the cloak is going to be naturally a little bit brighter since it's higher. It's up closer to our light sources. But we're going to use amount of highlights to illustrate brightness, not increase in value or shift in tone. Might do a little bit of shift in tone depending on the end overall result. But for now, the plan is just like this. We're going to keep in that same, just black, brown to red. So that's right here on the palette. This is all our non-metallic. Went this way, and then our red goes this way. Alright, got our red finished. You can see our intensity gets a lot brighter up on the top of the cloak as far as how much is highlighted. Let's move on to the inside of the cloak. Got some royal purple here. My arms are sore. My mom had me moving rocks. Rocks. Alright, we're going to do a fur lining. The Khador ladies have this nice white fur stippled in, but we're going to glaze it and dirty it up a little bit because hers is worn. Of course, she's wearing it, but I hope you get what I mean. Don't be a troll. Alright. So, a little ramshackle with our first layers here. I want to leave some black. And of course, we're going to do more of these dots as we get up into the higher areas. Back down in here, there's going to be almost nothing because it's in shadow. But it's almost like a stipple brushstroke right now, and we'll move into more of a really controlled stipple motion. I'm starting with the purple just to get a nice cool complement going for the red. Purple's always a really nice complement color. Be real careful on your edges here. You can almost just paint it in. You can't just paint it in because we're going to be doing some controlled stippling along that edge there. Alright, I'm going to demonstrate right in here how we're going to come up. Our sky gray. Sky gray is a nice soft blue gray we can use to increase the value here. So we got our desaturated purple. Let's start bringing up this area. Just stipple, 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 stipple. And being a layer-based painter, you can be a little more separated with your layers on this. They don't have to be like super blendy because the dots are going to do a lot of that work for us. Dots can overlap the edge just a little bit, showing that the fur is sticking past. Adjust my light just a little bit. Going up again. This area is going to be pretty bright, so you'll leave more of these underlayers as you go up. We're almost to our pure sky blue, sky gray, sky blue gray. And then pure. Giving you that bright fur lining. There we go. Got some fur, gonna do that to the entire inside. Of course, this down in here is gonna be really dark. This over here, where the light's catching naturally, you can see this is gonna be kind of our other bright point, kind of frame the inside of the figure. Alright, we got a nice warm coat. It's making me feel, I don't know, it's getting cold in here or something. I'm gonna take some of my brown now. We need a base coat for kind of, she's got almost like a potato sack dress on. We get a base coat on that. Alright, for that, let's get the German TKCR Black and Earth. A little bit of a green, black, and earth. And that'll be our base tone for our potato sack dress. Just an earthy tone. Coats pretty well too, so it's always nice to have good colors that base coat well. Alright, we got the base color in for our flour sack, and then we're highlighting it up. The recipe for the base flour sack is our German thick brown mixed up to a pure earth. From pure earth to a almost pure khaki. We're going up fairly high. See that down there? Yep, see that. Right in the corner. And then after the fact, we're dirtying it back up. I had first tried some of the Parasite Brown, but it was too orange. Clashed a lot with the cloak. So I switched it over to more of a red-based brown for the umber here. Gets us a lot better dirt. A little bit of dots here and there to, you know, simulate splashing mud, but just kind of a stain at the bottom of the cloak here. Alright, to illustrate, so we have our mid-tone, which I showed you guys. I'm going to mix some of our earth in, and just volumetric highlights on these. So we're concentrating on making sure the object is highlighted, not any sort of reflective properties or anything like that. That's what I mean when I say volumetric, just kind of a natural matte object, and how it goes about catching light and how the colors shift from shadow to a brighter tone. Trying not to work too much wet on wet, but you can if you're a fan of wet blending. Got a little bit of texture here on the model, which I'll turn into dirt. Let's let that dry just a second. Give it a little encouragement with a puff. Not that kind of puffball. Just a... Alright, and then we're at Pure Earth. You can see the color shifts pretty drastically. And you can shift up as you're going. You can knock out more shadows if you don't like where gradient falls, as I did like right there. And now I take that Pure Earth, mix some khaki into it, just one step. Let's see how much brighter that is. I'm gonna go there, leave a little shadow underneath, catch the tail end of this and this high point up there. And then let's take our Umbral Umber. Now if you don't thin it, it coats really well. If you thin it, it gets kind of gel-like, which is good for glazing, right? So I go kind of heavy on the tip here. And if I lick my brush and sort of agitate where it started, it's not already dry, it starts kind of blending it, leaving like a, almost like a pockmark sort of look, like dirt. Then maybe like a dot or two here. And then this little piece of texture, we're gonna make it like a little mud clod that's stuck to her shirt. Now she's got her dirty clothes. We're gonna make some more dirty clothes up here. Probably less dirty than this bottom rim. Maybe just a little bit of staining here and there. Maybe some sweat stains. That might be cool. But you know, I will do it, and if I like it, I will keep it. If I don't, I'll paint over it, and then you'll see the final result. Alright, have my dirty sack dress all in, and now we're starting to work on skin. So base coat for our skin, switched over to, not that one, where's the mahogany? It's this one, mahogany brown. I like to start with deep dark reds. So you can see in the eye socket and under the cheek, that's where our mahogany is, and then I just have pure mahogany on the hands. I've gone ahead and I've added a layer of our hammered copper. So going with a very orangey, ruddy sort of skin tone. The example here being the elbow. You can see like under the elbow, I dropped like a little bit of shadow to show the point, you know, the elbow like sticking out when it's bent, and then brought it up to very high highlight using a mixture of cold yellow and pale or light flesh from VMC. And you can see my mixtures here on the palette. So here to a mixture of this and this over here, with light flesh added progressively to an almost light flesh, which might on the face work out. I wanted to go ahead and paint the base coat and get the first layer of the hammered copper in, not doing it on screen, just to show you where the placement of my colors. So again, using that first highlight layer, which is still a deep shadow tone, as a way to mark out where I want my highlights to be. You can see this little line down in here, the crease by the nose, where the eyelid and the cheek sort of intersect, the bottom lip, the rim of the mouth. These things might be smoothed over later. And I'm going to incrementally kind of show you that, because these tones don't coat very well, and I don't want you to sit here for 10 minutes watching me do 50 layers of one color just to blend it out. I can show you kind of where I put it and just copy that. So I'll do kind of a step-by-step and explain it. Alright, so I've taken my mixture of the hammered copper and yellow being a stronger value, so it brings up our value and changes our saturation to more of an orange instead of a, well, not instead of, up from a red. That's this color here. So you can see right here it's brighter base wise, and I have continued to sketch out the face. So refined out these shapes, connected the cheek. So I have a heavy shadow here, which I might not want to keep because it'll give it that kind of that Games Workshop feel when it comes to female faces. We want to make sure that she's mean, but she still has feminine features instead of iron jaw, so to speak. Intensifying the highlight on this side of the face, the visible side of the face. Backpack's typically not the viewing angle. Mouth still looks a little weird because it's just a big black hole. She's got her tongue and teeth in there, which we'll address later. Keeping our dark lines next to the nose and the outline of the mouth. Again, just for object saturation or separation, we can go back and glaze those shadows out to take the harshness down, because those deep dark shadows make her really look older. We want her to be, again, not so chiseled. She's got a scar across her face and stuff that we need to work on, so she's already got her battle face on. Brushstroke wise, one brushstroke kind of across the bottom of the eye, and then push the highlight with small brush strokes, even just dabs of the brush, not to create a stippling effect, but to just create a solid impact of paint or coverage. So like, especially like up here in the eyelid where it's like I don't want to push toward the eyebrow, kind of dab the paint. That way it gives me a lot more control on how the paint layers around that object. Now go ahead and do the next layer and explain that for you. Alright, so we moved up one step in the highlight. She's starting to get some really baggy cheeks there, some good jowls. Again, we're going to soften that up in a minute. Coming in, again, just redefining these shapes, leaving these dark lines that we'll glaze out later. I had a little bit of an overage of one of my layers into that. It's fine. I'm going to knock that out in a minute. I did take a little bit of magenta and add it to this tone, so you have this tone here, just to mark where the scar is, because I was starting to lose that in my mini layers of skin tone. This area here is kind of flat, but if you dot it and leave shadow around it, get that kind of furrowed knot that happens between your eyebrows when you're really mad and you're about to kill somebody with a big possessed sword. Continue to outline the face, not highlighting up this area as much, keeping the brightness on this side of the face, but still keeping the shape of like the eyebrow here intact. Gonna add yet another layer, so let's mix up some more of our base color here. And see, this is the layer that we were working with, so we can see reference wise how bright we were. I'll come up again. See, now we're getting that really kind of peachy flesh tone. Come in, do a few brush strokes. So like the nose for this model, I want the furrowed brow, and I don't want to do, if you do 2 dots in the nose, it gives you kind of that I can kind of show you, do like a dot here, it gives you that like aquiline nose where it's like you have that raised bump. But if you do a straight brush stroke, it gives you more of a straight, like an arrow nose. And you can either L or you can start dotting the nostrils at some point, so then it picks out the nostril a little bit more. You get that shape as you go up nostril wise. Here, gonna play with highlights to see, you know, what we can do as far as skin distortion on this scar coming across the face here, because we got kind of a point where it should be a little bit brighter. So we're picking up that skin distortion right underneath the scar. But that's that layer, and we'll move on to the next. Alright, I think we're at the point now where we can take our current highlight layer, which is the one that you just saw that I was working on, and I'm going to create a glaze with it. So I want a fairly even coating glaze, and the secret to glazing is the brush load. So take your brush and unload until it's kind of right in the tops of the paper towel, and then it's not gonna like gush everywhere. And then to go from your shadow layers to your highlight, just a little bit of a quick motion, let it dry, glazes dry really fast, so I'm just blending out this shadow. You see me like poke at it a little bit, just trying to adjust the paint some. You can put some down in these cracks here, just to soften these shadows a little bit. So So she starts looking a little bit more natural, a little less mannequin-esque. So a bunch of those layers just to pull our shadows up. So, okay, I'm not doing it too much on this side because I want that side of the face in shadow. This side of the face, I want to knock out those hard lines. Keeping the hard lines in the eyes until we get to that. But for now, getting rid of that heavy shadow right under the cheek on this side. Alright, several progressive glazes later, and we've smoothed out our shadow transitions, left kind of a dark one here on this side, and pretty happy with that. I might knock that back. In the same manner, I will just go a little bit darker with my tone to glaze with, because I don't want to have a bright glaze in a shadow on an area of the face that's in shadow. So now I've mixed up a little bit more of my base tone. I'm going to go really high, grab a little bit of that, get some final highlights on there. These are the very sparing highlights. Tip of the nose. Get the inside of that scar. The underside. So we can do kind of a call out there. Get under the eye here. Stipple blend in a little bit. Again, just general placements. You can see the color difference there with a few spots that I've hit. Alright, let's paint the tongue. Let's hold off on the eyes for a second. So I already have a mahogany base. We're going to go back to that cinnamon red. Add that to our mahogany and add a pinch of magenta. Magenta being from Chimera. I'm trying to remember, did we use that one in this one? I don't think we did. I think that's... Maybe we did. Maybe we didn't. The lines are blurring. Alright, let's see if I can get in here and get this tongue without messing up all of my paint job. The reason we added the magenta is tongues they're not just like red, they got that pinkish tone to them. When you add a little bit of white, we're going to add a little bit of skin tone and see how that goes pink instead of just going brighter red. There we go. Highlight around. I'll take a closer look at that. And it's not under the camera. Maybe change up a little bit. I'll let you know if I do. Alright, I did one more step of highlight on the tongue, and I decided I'm not going to try to paint teeth under the camera. It's just, I can't get to it right, and the brush doesn't move right underneath the camera. There's like a little bit of lag that I can perceive. So, painting individual teeth. Just tiny dots. Be careful, be patient. My brush load and the color is like skin tone with a little bit of khaki mixed in for kind of that bone look. But the brush load will look kind of like this. So it's a fairly thick paint, but it's one where you can go in and make little tiny dots. You don't have to work super fast. I can sit, wait. I don't use a toothpick or anything like that. It's the same brush for everything. It's size 0, Winsor Newton. Just make sure you rinse out your brush and you got a moist back in your body of the Bristol. It'll keep that paint wet longer. Alright, I'll try eyeball. Let's see how that works out. Gonna use this same sort of khaki and pure flesh tone. Eyeballs aren't white, they are skin, so they have flesh tone. It's gonna go in. And I got real quiet. Well, pretty good. Might need to trim up a few areas, but it's like first eyeball was successful. I'm gonna do the next one off camera. Alright, we added a little bit of makeup. So this bottom lip here, magenta into our skin tone there. For under the eyes, a little bit of red, our cinnamon red, mixed into our skin tone. Give that blushed look. I went ahead and painted the interior of the eyes, the same green that the sword is going to be. These Doom Reavers have like souls trapped in their swords, and it's like a greeny energy. And I took that same green and gave her some eyeshadow to match up in here. You can see, I don't know where, right there. Right there. Didn't do a pupil. These are very, very tiny eyes. You can't tell by the size of the brush. I'm having trouble figuring out where the tip of my brush is when I'm in there, and I don't want to undo all my work of just getting the iris in there. Went ahead, painted the hands over here. Same recipe as the face and stuff. And there's like a little bit of skin poking through right there that I did. Let's switch over to something fun and do some gems. Gems is something I've been doing for a long time. Really just like the effect of making something look like a shiny piece of glass. We're going to use Necrotite green to go along with the green that we got in the eyes and kind of her magical energy. So I'm going to add some of this Necrotite to my palette. I need to freshen up. Let me see, my black. Black's still fairly active. I just need to add a little bit of water to it. There we go. So I'm going to mix up some green and black just for a little bit of a bright base tone. And the secret to gems is you have your light source. Actually, it might be coming in from the other way since her arms are raised up. Yeah, let's go in from the other way. So I'm going to do crescent shapes here, leaving the top of the gem black. So think of it as kind of like a moon, and you're doing phases of the moon, getting smaller and smaller each time you put on a layer, until you get to a crescent, which will just wrap around kind of the outside bottom edge of the gem. Adding progressive layers of green to it. And trying not to get green on your tablet. So the majority of your green is going to be at the bottom of this gem. Switch over and make sure that I'm getting the bottom side nice and solid. And we're going to go all the way up to a mix of white with this green. Here's our final highlight. So you want to be really, really tight with your layers. So the premise is that light enters the top of a piece of glass, and then the color of the glass shines out of the bottom. You have that tiny pinpoint entry point of light, and then at the bottom you get that color shining through. This is a fairly yellowy green too, so it's a pretty weak green. I'm going to go straight to my color now, and we'll see how abrupt of a change we get. See how I'm following the contour of the shape there. Move it to the base, shift angles, make sure that we're getting all the way around this object. And give like a little bit of a brush lick and then drag from our middle down to our highlight a little bit just to blend that out. It's like a really quick way to create a glaze, just to lick your brush then all of a sudden you've thinned your paint. I'm gonna take some of this, and I don't have any white. I don't want to neutralize what I got by using a flesh tone or a tan. So a little pinch of white there. Go up. I still have some black on the back of my brush, you can see there. It almost mixed into that color. And then I'm just going to take this little C shape here and highlight right underneath it. You can see the brightness right there. Sort of blend it, make sure we're maintaining that sort of circle shape. And then take our white. And I'm going to test it out real quick. One sort of big dot and one little tiny dot right there at the top. So we get our light entering the object and then our green coming through. Alright, we're going to take this chocolate brown that I just discovered we had and then use that as a base coat for all of our fur. Just getting in there. Get that nice doo-doo brown for the fur. That's going to be a lot. We'll do that. We'll do the inside of the arms there, and then back of the legs. And that's about it. Yep. Alright, once we get our base coat on of that chocolate brown, we're going to do a little bit of dry brushing, especially for this fur texture, this large fur texture here. It's okay to dry brush in some circumstances. So I have some of this earth brown here. I'll load my brush by kind of swirling it around and then unload it on my wet palette. Just kind of get an even feel. That'll give me less of a powdery look, more of a layered look with the way that the paint goes on. Aiming for high points, really. I'm using this long flat, so I'm getting a lot of coverage in just a few brush strokes. And I have these sort of big billows, like a big curtain. Anything that I miss, I'll go back with a smaller, like a detailed dry brush, and hit those areas. Reload in this area where I unloaded the majority of the paint last time. And I'm just going to go around the model and carefully do this. I'm going to grab my tan now. I'm going to sneeze. Khaki. 1 second. I had to sneeze. Whew. Alright. Unload again with this khaki. Make sure we have a lot less of this than our earth brown. And then hit our highlights. Now moving my brush side to side, kind of giving it forward flicks and drags, not going up and down. It's looking pretty good. Might need a few more layers. For these smaller leg areas, definitely going to get that smaller dry brush out. Just the same technique. Yeah, looking furry. Alright, after you get done with the dry brush, take a little bit of Guilliman flesh. We're going to put that over the straps just to differentiate these leather straps from the rest. Give you that red-brown look for the leather. We're going to go in here and change up the values a little bit with some glazes in that, but for now we just want to call out those straps. You can see I've already done, well, maybe you can't see, up in here in the arms. I've gotten those straps up there, over here on these guys. And just getting these other ones here, using an older Series 7. The first time I've switched brushes in this entire model. Dry brushes and older Series 7. I did a base coat of the chocolate brown on that little sack there too, just to see how it coats on larger flats. You need like a couple coats. I still need to do the bottom of this coat red too, where I want to get some of that wash in there first though. Now I'm taking a little bit of sepia and reinforcing shadows. Not worried about the surface finish as far as shines and stuff showing up, because I can always go in with some Lamia medium, knock out those shines and even out texture in there. The sepia dries pretty matte though, so I'm not super worried. So again, just painting anywhere I feel there should be shadow. Under the arms there. A little bit down in here. It's hard to get to area. Being careful to avoid my other objects. You see here where it's kind of getting darker. This might be a good opportunity to go ahead and kind of add some staining to the inside of the cloak. Making sure this cloak doesn't look factory new. It's a little dirty from dragging around, getting stained. Going little dots here and there. Wipe off my brush and soak up some excess and move around some spots just to get some of that brown into the coat. I mixed a little bit of white with my tan and took a non-dry brush and did almost like an edge highlight motion over some of these areas to add a little bit of brighter hair catching the light. So kind of like a dry brush motion, but edge highlighting. Just gonna break up that fur a little bit more. Did some right over here. I'm trying to think of what else might be in the light. Maybe over here. It's real gentle. To highlight those hairs. A couple in here. Down by my leg. I think that's it for the fur, other than matting out any of that wash that ends up shiny. Alright, taking a look at the pants. We're going to use this green gray. So she's got some kind of leggings in here. We're going to use white to bring them up, but not all the way to white. We don't want to overvalue those pants. Where is my white? There's my white. Overvalue in the sense of making them too bright. Alright, green gray, kind of a call out again to some of like the Khador commanders and stuff. They have those greenish tan pants. Goes well with red. Over in here. We're going to dirty these up a little bit too once we're done. Just volumetric highlights for these pants. Probably go up 1 or 2 layers in the same manner that we do highlights for a lot of the leather. Alright, we got the pants done. We did some highlights here and added a little bit of dirt, the same tone that we used for the sack dress, which is the Umbral Umber. I just mixed a little bit of the Umbral Umber with the gray green to get the dirt for that, so it's not like so drastic. It's just a nice little touch of splatter. Our sepia is dry. You can tell it's got some gloss to it, but we're gonna matte that out later. Got some gloss to it in here as well. I went ahead and painted one of the patches. I'm gonna do all the patches in like different tones from her clothing. I mean, it looks like she's like cut away a piece of her clothes to patch her cloak. Belts are the next thing that we're gonna do. We're gonna start with mahogany, which I already have out here. Same base tone that we used for our skin. It is this one. So I'm going to go ahead and get a base coat on all these belts and get back with you. Alright, so once you get that base coat of mahogany on your belts, we're going to mix up a highlight. I'm going to try this orange or Parasite Brown into our mahogany. I feel like this is the time. I knew I had that color out for some reason. It's a kind of a volumetric highlight to start out with, not worrying about cracks and crevices so much, more just a base color. Again, with the knowledge that light can get into shadow areas, so it's okay to highlight at least a few steps up. We're not really talking about highlights, we're just talking about like base colors to form highlights or to go in areas where there will be highlights. And then we're going to take this mixture, add something that coats a little bit better to it. Let's see. Some flat flesh. The leather, after all, is skin. This one's a little chunky. It's old. Alright, I don't know where my phone cut out, but I was adding some of that flesh tone to the mixture of Parasite Brown and mahogany, and we're adding little chips, weathering marks. Paint dried on the tip of my brush while I was talking, to the edges of the belt. Just again, this model, we're going heavy with texture. Lots of little textured elements. Some more of that flesh tone. Just adding in those little tiny bits of detail. Got accents on top of accents here. I feel like I should smooth that out with a final glaze of our mixed color here. Real thin glaze. Just to blend it out. Give it that little blur filter. Remember, it's not a wash, it's glaze. Alright, cool. That's a kind of mimics her skin tone a little bit so that we get some balance there in that value. Alright, once that belt is done, I went in and glazed a little bit of shadow in on the sides here. Just covered like a little point of her shirt that I had missed as well. So I got that. Let's look at the border around the tabard just to finish out the bottom of the model. Start working our way into those few leftover details we got to do. So this, I kind of want to do, Khador has those black tabards. So I'm going to mix a little bit of brown with my black and then bring it up with some khaki so that it's like not quite Khador, but still kind of Khador. Although I know she's not Khador, but she has roots. I might just base coat this whole thing, get rid of like the black and just give it this really kind of off brown base. It's like, you know, it's not super brown, but the base color kind of gives off more of a neutral vibe instead of a black. She's got these little like cuts and stuff, so I want to make sure that it looks worn. You know, it's like trying to make grays, but not really a gray. You know. And we'll highlight it like cloth, and then we'll add some edge highlights to it. And we gotta add a little bit of dirt in here. You can't have all this dirt on the cloth and not have some dirt. Bring those edge highlights in and down. And the theme of this model is being texture. Sorry for the long, quiet pause. See how it's like it's almost gray. It's not gray. It's got that brown. Hitting these edges a little bit just to accentuate, elevate. You're watching too many like cooking stuff. I'm getting that verbiage stuck in my head. See, kids, when you get older, you start watching cooking shows. Getting fatter. Gotta get to the gym again. COVID like put a huge rut in my getting to the gym. I was going like 6 days a week, doing classes and stuff. Now I'm just getting fit. Be able to see my belly sticking out over the edge. That'll be like the real tell. I call this done. So we did base color here. 1, 2, 3. 3 steps up. Alright. I'm going to think about base color for these medallions here. Probably a mid-tone gray. Like maybe a little bit of green in it. Perfect base color. Gray-green. I've been using that a lot. I got a lot of grays. But we're just going to hit these as a base real quick, and then we'll look at highlighting and detailing them up. Once you got your base coat of gray-green, we're going to go back to the sky gray as our highlight, just for kind of a stone look. So mixing up some of that gray-green, stepping up fairly quick. Again, back to that texture. Still have these little straps that hold them on. Whatever color zip tie she's using to put those on. Probably gonna go with like a yellowy hemp twine. And once you get from there, we'll go all the way up. Not doing really a smooth edge highlight. Kind of a chipped and worn edge highlight. That's how we'll treat all our stones, and we'll look at the glow here in a second. Alright, let's start with some yellow just to get a good base for our green in there, since the greens are kind of weak. That's for our glows. Sort of tracing the letter in here. And go over, do a few coats of that. You can see it pretty well. And then we're going to get started on the sword too. So we're going to water down some yellow as a basis and create almost like a wash. Start getting our yellow in these little screamy soles here. We'll do a couple of layers of that. Again, just as a nice bright basis for the weapon. Alright, once your yellow is in these little slots, it's one coat of green there, a couple coats of green there. Use this fluo. It's okay if you're a little messy with it. It's going to pick up on the yellow a lot more than it is with the green, and it'll just look like OSL. So do a couple coats on each little rock. Alright, added a little bit of dirt in the form of this color, the Umbral Umber, to the bottom of our tabard. We added a little bit on the inside of the cape up in here. You can see the shininess got really knocked out by that Lamia medium. There's like no shine in there anymore. It's all nice and matte. You guys didn't tell me I missed one of these things, so I went ahead and painted that one. Got the Z rune. I'm going to go ahead and do a slight dry brush of black over the top of this, so kind of bring up the dimension that's in that area of the figure. So I already got some black here on my palette. Gonna wet brush, dry brush. There's a ton of texture here. You can immediately see the effect. So going real light. Remember, dry brushing can be used in a multitude of ways, not just for highlighting. This sort of technique works really good for fire too. If you're taking fire from yellow to an orange to a red to a black, this method works really nice. And we're seeing the faces a lot better in there. That yellow is just going to help concentrate our highlights. Alright, got that dry brush done. Locking in some base colors for our patches and little bags and sacks and stuff. Still haven't decided what I want to do here. Kind of something to do while things are drying in between steps. Earth for the bedroll. We have our chocolate brown for this little bag in here. And then our mahogany brown for this big satchel. We also got, I think this is like a canteen or something. We're going to get that as well. I'm going to take this, where's the Japan uniform? Japan uniform for our little ties. Before doing a wash over some of these areas. So I'm going to have to wash the little ties too that keep the stones, little runes in place. This is why it's handy to have a needle. The Vallejo bottles get stuck out. Whoop. Well, that is a few less uses of that paint. Sometimes I can like squeeze the bottle. I just go. I'm just gonna suck it up. That was me. Not the bottle. For any who was wondering. Maybe you weren't. Maybe you knew it was me. Alright. So this is kind of our yellowy brown for these ties. That'll be our base color for those. Again, kind of yellowy to match with the green a little bit. This leather is going to be the same leather for these straps, so I'll go ahead and base coat that, and then I'm going to throw on, so many steps, throw on a watered down, actually it might just be almost a base coat over the top of this. Yeah, you see how lightly that's covering. I mean, the black, it just like barely even covers. But get in here and just kind of slather on one of these fluo green coats for the sword, just to get a base color going. All right, let's break out the Seraphim Sepia. Now that we got some of our patches painted, I did the chocolate base for the ones that aren't gray green. We're gonna add some sepia. We'll break out the liner, give it a rinse. And again, this stuff can get shiny, especially if you're going to put it on fairly thick. And when it gets too thick, just take your brush and see how your brush will siphon off the excess that you don't need. We'll go ahead, we're going to add wash like this to all of the little tabs and the patches. So these little yellow brown tabs. Alright, once that's dry, I went ahead and dried mine. You want to add some of that Lamia medium. You can see we're shiny. We got shiny spots. We want to dull that out. I'm taking a little bit older Winsor Newton. Don't panic. It's not a new one. Putting a coat on there. I was just painting like off to the side like you guys didn't exist. Should be like a challenge. Try to paint on video. Pain in the butt. I'm gonna add that to all these little spots. You can see here how the shadow sort of affected, like a little bit of naturalization, drop shadow. I got some brown tone in there. Alright, now we're gonna clean up these patches. So this one I've cleaned up. We've gotten the shine out. There might be like a few little places that are, nope, that's just a shadow. That's like a piece of 3D print residue. Take your khaki. She always laughs. She means to laugh. Khaki, and then just 2 little line highlights right here. So you're kind of bisecting, and the khaki will naturalize the yellow, so the yellow becomes kind of a mid-tone or an undercolor. And then for the actual patch itself with the green gray, went back and highlighted with the straight green gray, and then added a touch of white to it. So just going in. Getting the volume a little bit. Kind of hard to see in there because the bag's shadowing. And then up here, I have a mixture where I added some white to it. See, like right here. So you got like kind of that dirt from the sepia around the patch. And for the chocolate, we'll do the same thing. We'll just take our base chocolate color, do kind of a really faint mid-tone highlight, hit these little edges, and then we'll add a little bit of tan to it. So I'll take some of this tan, and we're highlighting the ropes, the stitching with just to bring up the color, add volume again. Alright, we're going to go in and start highlighting our first bag. I think everything except for the hair and the hilt's done on the front. So we're going to take flat flesh. Our base is mahogany. All my paints are stopped up today. Ew. There we go. I got paint all over my fingers. It's kind of hard to avoid when you paint for a living. Just don't want to touch the model. with it. Alright, grab some of this. Come up a tad. Volumetric highlights. So just coming around and accentuating the shape. It's a big cylinder after all. And then reinforcing my highlight once things dry a little bit. These don't have to be like over the top. They're not really the star of the show. The bags here. We go up one more mix. Just to differentiate the color and value tone a little bit more. Adding little bits of texture to it for that worn leather look. So kind of angled brush strokes, left, right, up, down, and then in between those cardinal directions, diagonals. And I think that's good. It's good for a bag. Same thing, chocolate brown bag. Adding our tan, kind of like we did with our patches. Come in. Add a nice volumetric highlight. Bring it up one more step. Oop, that is the wrong bag. Moving too quick. Go a little smoother with this one. We're gonna add like a few airbrush shadows in here. Just a punch, take the airbrush and make the call your cat over. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and do these straps here. So same recipe for those. Should have painted them at the same time. Starting with our Parasite brown base color, and then I'll finish those, and then we'll move on to the sleeping bag. All right, we're highlighting up this bedroll here. Got our straps finished in a little bit brighter than the ones on her belly, just because they're in more light. So highlighting and then using that highlight color to create weathering patterns, and then create weathering patterns down on top of the previous highlight, so that you kind of get that layered. You get the shade and the texture at the same time. So we're taking the earth color, mixing it with our khaki for our bedroll, kind of that nice natural tan bedroll look. On the little crescent roll on the end, highlighting the whole top of it with our first highlight layer. Highlighting the top edges with that first highlight layer only on the these little bottom rungs. Then another edge highlight on the top with the next layer, and then the final pure khaki layer is just little hits, so that you get that nice little highlighted up crescent roll. So we're going all the way to the khaki with this. So demonstration time. Get some khaki, get some earth, mix it up. I kind of show you the first. Let's do the other cinnamon roll. Still thinking about like sitting there and just painting off screen, talking to myself. Get in the habit of doing this too much. I'll have that narration brain going. So edge highlighting with our first highlight color in these. And then there's a little poof at the top. And then we add one more mixture stage. And for this one, we do edge highlights, fairly broad. And then we go to our pure khaki and real small. Just right down the core. Alright, so you get our little crescent roll there, and then volumetric highlights for the rest, nothing super special. This canteen has literally been the hardest thing to decide what color to paint. Went with our extra dark green, and I'm going to highlight it up using some of the, it's over here, there we go, there's the active, but my palette's getting a little bit crowded. That is the sky gray we're using to highlight up. So I'm going to create a couple little mixes here. Let's see if that's too much. Might be a little bit too much. Yep. Back it down. Chill out. And we're just going to highlight up a couple layers with this again. Same sort of volumetric process. These little decorative elements, we'll do some non-metallics for them. And for simplicity's sake, let's just do the non-metallic recipe that we have up here on the arms for these, like these little studs, and then what I think the cap and the little hinges that connect the strap to the actual bag. Maybe it's a candy. I don't know if it's canteen or not. It's just some sort of weird bag. Maybe it's like a reagent bag. Just keeps her spell components in there. Pretty intense. Gonna have to smooth that out. I'm gonna finish up these layers and show you the result. Alright, hair. Base coat of Parasite Brown. You're gonna need a few base coats because it coats like crap. And then we're using about a 50-50 value mix of our Chimera Cold Yellow and our Parasite Brown. I'm going to do this one kind of how I did the face. I'm going to do stages and then just kind of show you what the end result is. So with the top of the head, again, light can blow out shadows. So we want to blow out some of our shadows. Don't worry about individual strands quite yet on the top of the head. Maybe down here, a few individual strands, going for that kind of strawberry blonde sort of look. So we're gonna leave a little bit of shadow. We still want a lot of difference down here. Also, still coats really poorly. And you guys didn't tell me that she had runes on her head too, so gonna have to have a talk about that. Anyway, I'm gonna do this step and then I'll move on to the next one. Alright, we're moving on to the yellows. Again, went pretty heavy with that first highlight layer in here. You can fill in some of that shadow. It's okay. For this, kind of doing an edge highlight. Filling in where I might need extra strands, have to do some dots at the bottom of here. And then creating a highlight band where I do fill in, for the most part, around here. Alright, so there's a highlight band around the top of the head. Okay. I'll show you that in the next step. Alright, this is where we're at with the yellow. Doing kind of a solid line underneath the braid here. Solid lines around the head so you have that crown highlight. Getting pretty heavy on the highlight still on the top of that braid. Around, and her arm is in the way of everything. So I'm going to use easier to coat colors to sort of modify these hair strands as I go in. So we want to go to like a straw color, so we'll get back out. Actually, I'm going to go to the Minoth white highlight. So we're going to do a 50-50 with the Minoth and the cold yellow for our next highlight. I'll put my pool of color there. We're still pulling strands. Getting more intense. Alright, edge highlight kind of mode. Taking that side of the brush over our crown highlight. Help if you can see a minute. Pulling some strands. And we'll do smaller dot highlights on the braids. Just near the front of each round or spherical sort of braid shape. Alright, so I've gone ahead and done final highlights on the hair with the Minoth, so just pure Minoth, real tiny point highlights in there just to get a good variance in the hair. I'm thinking about glazing this just to kind of even it out a little bit. The Chimera could be like a little bit chunky, but I feel like it's presenting pretty well. Might experiment with a few colors, and if I do change anything, I will let you know. Alright, so I did glaze. I found a color that I like just to soften the shadows a bit. We still have that tone, but a little bit softer. It was a little harsh where I was. For the glaze, I used Yeehaw Rawhide from Cuttlefish and some of their magic medium, so more of a glaze type medium. Gives it I mean, not super thick. You can see it kind of move in the bottle, but it works really well to just kind of thin down. And this is the color on the palette. A little bit of medium there. Let's see how it mixes. The paint just suspends in it a lot better than it does if you just use water. Alright, I did base the base in Earth, so that's that one, Tiara. Trying to think, I'm going to paint these runes next on her. And I'm still thinking about this sword. I'm dreading this sword. It's a big green 2x4. I'm going to smooth it out with the airbrush for sure. I'm thinking about adding some steel elements toward the front of it, like a transition at the tip of the blade. And maybe some blue shadow. Maybe. I don't know. I'm hesitant to alter that. This... gonna do a non-metallic brass on it and up here as well, and then the hilts will be kind of a natural darker tan color. We still have some glowing runes in here too that we'll have to do, but we're almost there. Alright, non-metallic on the sword. Let's just do the whole thing, the hilt and the guard, starting out with blackened brown. There's our first sort of sketch in layer. You can realistically hit the whole piece. You can leave like a little bit of black in here. Trying to think about video length too. You guys are gonna watch a 2-hour video of stuff. And this already has like a little bit of my hair tone on it. So I'm not worried about the indentions quite yet. We'll do the bottom, and then we'll do like a little The highlight being across the side there. Leave a little bit of black right there. Now we take our, is it Japan uniform? Japan uniform. We're going to mix our black and brown and that about 50-50. You can see, yeah, it's right here down at the bottom. Might need to step this up a few times actually, looking at it. Probably 2 steps and then to pure. Alright, let's use this broad space here to demonstrate our gradient. Now, already starting to pull edges, probably don't even need to at this point. Alright, step it up again. Pulling edges. Let's just do that one part. I can fly through this.
Is this cardboard cutting?
Pure Japan uniform. Then we jump to a German yellow RLM. Do a little bit of a mix here. Just so the transition isn't super harsh. Getting caught up on those pieces of text. Alright, pure German yellow. It's real tiny because this is our bounce area. And then Menoth white highlight. Where'd it go? It's around here somewhere. It's the one we've been using a lot. Oh, there it is. Menoth white highlight. And that'll be our final highlight here on the blade. Just kind of like a little dot for that area. Okay, we are about done. We have our non-metallic here finished up, and then the sword, I've been frustrating myself with this sword. So I went and I took fluo yellow and fluo green and just nuked the crap out of it. You can see it blew away most of my black, kept it toward the base of the sword, and now I'm taking some of the Cygnus yellow from Privateer and then some of the glazing magic medium from Cuttlefish, and I'm putting highlights into the eyes and mouth of the heads. I still feel like I need to darken the skulls a little bit. Kind of like the energy look of the sword. We'll see how that goes. I did airbrush a little bit of green here, which worked well with the non-metallics as far as like OSL, and a little bit of OSL on the head, which really does bring some brightness to that area. A little bit of green right here, and then right here as well on the armor. So I'm just kind of going back and forth with the sword, kind of going with the spirit look that's something that like the Machine Wraiths and that have. I mean, it's not like the previous, like the Orgosaurus, the axe that I did, which, yeah, I think this one's coming out first, so I can show you. So this one, like, I really like how this turned out, because it looks kind of like deep and dark, and it's on the inside of the axe. And this one, I'm just, I don't know. Is it like a lightsaber? I'm not sure. Is Disney going to sue me now since I said lightsaber on YouTube? I don't know. When I say lightsaber, I mean like the ones that the YouTubers make that cut cars open and stuff. I continue to do this and then kind of walk you through my steps. Okay. Alright. I think this is it. The yellow, like I just talked about, it was a little while ago for me, in the eyes and mouths of the head. Man, there's like a laser beam coming in right there. And then fluo yellow over that to bring kind of a highlight to those areas. And then this darker color that's on top of the faces is actually just sick green. So that comes out looking pretty dark, but still has that saturated green to it, to give those faces some volume so they're pretty recognizable when you see them. Let's take a look at the base. Get this chick finished up. Get my paper towels here, wipe off all this sick green. I know, rough on these dry brushes, but they're cheap, so I'll just buy more. I have some tan here on my palette. Gonna dry brush up our front of our base. Going with that crescent method. Crescent meaning the front half of the base. I'm gonna add like a little bit of this Japan yellow in there. Still got some kind of green and black going on as well with the cleaning. Watching out for the model. I don't want to get anything on the really detailed painted parts. Challenging figure. This video's got to be long. I don't know. I don't really edit anything. You guys are probably like, we know. I just take clips and give you my thoughts on stuff and how I do it. I know a lot of like painting videos, you see them like at 4 times speed and stuff. It's like I can't tell what's going on. I really like the videos where it's just somebody sitting and painting. I mean, sometimes there's a lot of dead space with the process, so that's why it's, you know, try to hit the middle of things where it's like there's action going on. I have something to say. I'm not just slurping on my brush. Alright, we got our dry brush on. I'm going to throw a flock on this, but first I got to find it. Here we go. These are the ones I like. I still need to trim them down, so for that, take scissors, cut them up. I got some nice little clampy tweezers here, the ones that like you spread and then they come back. Also, when you cut, again, I'm not going to do it over my palette because I don't want all that crap in my paint, even though I'm going to change this out. After you trim your length, go back in and kind of randomize it by doing multiple little snips at different angles to get a nice randomized height of your grass like it is now. This is the finished result. You can see next to our normal stuff. It's a lot shorter, about half. And I just super glue these on. I know they're sticky on the back, but that's not an adhesive. That is just to hold the grass in place. It's like barely even stickier than a booger. Wipe that off a little bit. There. Push it down. Make sure it's not obscuring anything on the model. I don't want the grass to really take away from. And then after that dries, we're going to add our little Earthshade wash around. The base painted with earth, I did an Earthshade wash on it as well. In case I didn't mention that, I don't know if I did. This is a new day for me. Pushing this in. While that's drying, can do a little bit of a tan. Not really a dry brush, it's kind of like a wet layer almost. See how the color is now, and then Go over the top, kind of deadens it out, blends it with the base just a little bit. That still gives us that texture that's on the base. You can paint your flock. It's okay. Oh man, I just had breakfast. Hiccups. Alright, I'll give that a minute to dry, and we'll go ahead and black out the base. The Pro Acryl black kind of dries matte. It's like so matte that it like grays out a little bit. So I'm gonna take some of this Vallejo black. I got like 10 different brands of black sitting over here. It's like that juggle between like, was it gonna be glossy? Is it gonna be matte? Is it gonna be black? Oop, I should have wet that brush before I do that. Even though it's a shitter brush. Black out this base. This is normally like my in sequence stuff, but I'm gonna do that when I wash the grass. Changing things up. So I already got like a little piece of grass in there hanging on. But I do hope you guys enjoy watching. I've received messages and stuff from a few of the people that watch the show. It's really nice of you guys to reach out and hear the support. It means a whole lot. Like, you know, I didn't expect people to just be plain supportive. Like, usually think about, you know, answering questions and trying to help people out in general when it comes to painting. But the emotional support that comes along with doing these videos has been really nice. The internet can be a nice place, and that makes me happy. Just blacking out this ring. That glue should be dry enough now that we can put our wash around. Just making sure that I get a nice clean base for her. There's one more step I want to do after the wash. That's going to be a little bit of airbrush. Actually, let's do that first. Let's give the glue some time to dry. Yes, even after doing this for over 30 years, you can be indecisive about what things you want to do first. Take my Sotar 2020. Take really good care of my airbrushes, as you can tell. I use drill bits to clean out the paint sometimes. As long as it's the same gauge as the needle, it's not going to hurt anything, right? Get my quick connect. I'm going to grab some indigo real quick. Alright, load it up. 3 drops of ink, 3 drops of thinner. It's probably too much. I usually only really use inks through this, sometimes like really thin paint. It's a 0.15, so it's super sensitive. I want to get some shadow on these bags a little bit. The blue is going to help with the red. Kind of shoot it up from the bottom there. Add some shadow in there. Just from underneath. Yeah, a little bit of darkness always helps. Feels good. Maybe go in here in her armpit. Just a tiny bit. See that blue in there? A little bit like right in there. I think that's about all I want to add. You see a danger with these, you pull back too far. Like those little spiders. You want to be right in there with those tiny little, you just barely pull on your trigger. And just trust that it's building up. You don't want that immediate sort of sploosh of color. And see, I got like way too much in my airbrush. These 0.15s will They can still dump, right? But, alright, last thing, let's use some of this sewer paint. Gargex sewer. This stuff thinned down, I feel like, is the new Earthshade. Like, Earthshade got kind of a step back when it comes to consistency, coverage. I'm using a little bit of water just to thin it. You see, just adding a tiny bit of darkness there. Making sure I'm not getting... God, I got such the reflex to lick my brush and wash this. Oh, nasty. Contrast, nasty. There we go. Got a little shadow around our grass. Got a little bit of mud being churned up from the plants coming in. Well, that is it. Hopefully. I might have revisions on this. And if you're watching these videos and you're like, yeah, the picture looks a little bit different from the end of the video, it's because I made some revisions to it. Like I have some revisions to do on my Orgoth guy. But I hope you enjoyed watching. Please feel free to ask questions. Please hit all those little buttons that make YouTube happy. And as always, happy painting.